A tech billionaire just announced his engagement to his pregnant mistress at a charity gala in front of 300 people. There's just one problem: his wife had no idea they were getting divorced. But when Sarah Mitchell walked through those ballroom doors with her attorney, she wasn't just there to stop a wedding announcement. She was there to expose a fraud so elaborate it involved stolen companies, forged documents, and a plan to steal her own daughter. This story has everything: secret recordings, fake pregnancies, and a revenge so perfectly executed it'll give you chills. If you love seeing justice served ice cold, smash that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe, because what happens next will blow your mind. Trust me, this man's downfall is absolutely spectacular. Sarah Mitchell stood in her kitchen, packing lunch for her 10-year-old daughter Emma, while watching her husband David gulp down his morning coffee. 12 years ago, they had started TechFlow Solutions in this very kitchen, working 16-hour days to build something from nothing. Now, their Austin-based company was worth $50 million, and David was preparing for an IPO that would change their lives forever. "Don't forget Emma's pickup today," Sarah reminded him, sealing the sandwich bag. "Dance class ends at 6. David barely looked up from his phone. "Actually, can you handle that? I've got a crucial meeting with the marketing team about the charity gala presentation." Sarah paused. The Children's Hospital Charity Gala was David's pet project this year, and he had been obsessing over every detail for months. As the event chair, he wanted everything perfect. She understood his dedication, but lately, it felt like she was managing their entire family alone. "Of course," she said, forcing a smile. "Emma will understand." After David left, Sarah sat in the silence of their sprawling suburban home. The walls were lined with photos of their journey together, their wedding in her hometown of Columbus, Ohio, David receiving his first tech award, Emma's first steps, family vacations that seemed increasingly rare. She had given up her teaching career to support David's dreams, believing they were building something together. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Maria Santos, who worked at TechFlow's office building as part of the night cleaning crew. "Girl, your husband is working late again. Saw his car in the lot past midnight. That man needs to slow down." Sarah frowned. David had told her he was home by 10 last night. She distinctly remembered him saying he had an early meeting and needed rest. Maybe Maria had seen someone else's car. At 3:30, Sarah picked up Emma from school. Her daughter chatted excitedly about her upcoming dance recital, but then mentioned something that made Sarah's stomach tighten. "Daddy's work friend Jessica is really nice," Emma said innocently. "She always smiles at me when I visit the office. She has pretty long hair like a princess." "When do you visit Daddy's office?" Sarah asked, keeping her voice casual. "Sometimes when you can't pick me up, Daddy takes me there. Jessica always has candy at her desk. She said she might come to my dance recital." Sarah had never heard David mention anyone named Jessica. In 12 years of marriage, he had always been transparent about his employees and colleagues. She knew everyone at TechFlow, from the senior developers to the administrative staff. Who was Jessica? That evening, David came home at his usual 7:30, kissing Sarah on the cheek while loosening his tie. He seemed relaxed, almost cheerful. "How was your day?" Sarah asked, setting down his dinner plate. "Productive. The marketing team is really stepping up for the gala. We're going to raise more money than ever for the Children's Hospital. Emma mentioned someone named Jessica from your office. I don't think I've met her." David's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Jessica Chen. She's new. Handles our social media marketing. Bright kid. Fresh out of college. Why, just curious. Emma seems to like her." Yeah, she's good with kids. Very professional. David resumed eating, but Sarah noticed a slight tension in his shoulders. Later that night, as David showered, Sarah glanced at his phone charging on the nightstand. She had never been the type to snoop, but something felt off. The phone was face down, which was unusual. David typically left it face up so he could see notifications. She almost reached for it, then stopped herself. This was David, her husband, her partner in everything. They had built a life and a business together. If she couldn't trust him, who could she trust? But as she lay in bed listening to David's steady breathing, one thought kept circling in her mind in 12 years of marriage. He had never mentioned working with someone so late that Emma would meet them multiple times. And why hadn't Jessica been at any of the company events Sarah attended the next morning, brought an answer she wasn't prepared for? Sarah discovered the hotel receipt by accident while organizing papers for their accountant. It was tucked between bank statements, a crisp white slip from the Four Seasons downtown. The date jumped out at her immediately: March 15th, their anniversary. She remembered that night perfectly. David had apologized profusely for missing their anniversary dinner because of an emergency business trip to San Francisco. He had been so remorseful, promising to make it up to her with a weekend getaway that they still hadn't taken. Sarah had spent their anniversary alone, eating takeout and watching Netflix. But according to this receipt, David had been at the Four Seasons in Austin that night, room 1247. The charges showed dinner for two at the hotel restaurant, champagne service, and late checkout. Sarah's hands trembled as she stared at the paper. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a client meeting that ran late. Maybe the San Francisco trip was canceled last minute, and he decided to treat a visiting investor to a nice dinner. David was always going above and beyond for business relationships. She called the Four Seasons, her heart pounding. "I'm trying to confirm a reservation for March 15th, she told the receptionist. "David Mitchell, room 1247. Let me check our records. Yes, I see that reservation. Mr. Mitchell and guests checked in at 6 p.m. and out the following morning at 11. Is there something I can help you with regarding that stay, guest?" Not guests. Singular. A business dinner wouldn't require an overnight stay. And David would have mentioned if a client needed accommodation. Sarah hung up and sat in her kitchen, the same kitchen where they had dreamed their dreams and built their empire. The morning sun streamed through the windows, but everything felt cold. She thought about confronting David immediately, but decided to wait. Maybe there was still an innocent explanation. Maybe she was overreacting. Her mother had always accused her of being paranoid in relationships, citing Sarah's father who had left when Sarah was 12. Maybe that childhood abandonment was making her see threats where none existed. That evening, Sarah approached David carefully. "I found a hotel receipt while organizing our papers," she said, watching his face. "From the Four Seasons on our anniversary. I thought you were in San Francisco that night." David's expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened slightly. "Oh, the San Francisco meeting got pushed to a video call last minute. I was so frustrated about missing our anniversary that I decided to book a nice room and work on the IPO presentation. I figured if I was going to miss our dinner anyway, I might as well make the work session productive in a good environment." "You stayed overnight for a work session?" "The creative process. You know. Sometimes you need to get away from distractions. I ordered room service and worked until 2 a.m., got more done in those 8 hours than I had in the previous 2 weeks. It sounded reasonable. David had always been dedicated to his work, sometimes to a fault. Sarah felt guilty for doubting him. "I'm sorry I suspected anything," she said. "I just missed you that night." David pulled her into a hug. "You're being paranoid." Sarah, like your mother always was with your dad. I'm not going anywhere. We're partners. Remember, in everything." The mention of her mother stung. Sarah's mother had indeed been paranoid, constantly accusing Sarah's father of cheating until he finally left, claiming he couldn't live under constant suspicion. Sarah had sworn she would never become that kind of wife. "You're right," she said. "I'm sorry." But over the next few weeks, small things began to pile up. David's phone was always face down now. He took calls in his car or outside. He worked later and later, coming home after Emma was already asleep. When Sarah visited the office to drop off lunch, the receptionist mentioned that Mr. Mitchell was in a meeting with Jessica Chen, but Sarah never saw this mysterious employee. Then came the credit card statement. Sarah handled their personal finances while David managed the business accounts. She knew their spending patterns by Hart Groceries, Emma's activities, household expenses, the occasional dinner out. But March showed unusual charges: a high-end jewelry store, an expensive lingerie boutique she had never visited, and multiple charges at restaurants she had never been to. When she asked David about the jewelry store charge, he smiled and kissed her forehead. "It's a surprise for your birthday next month. Don't ruin it by asking questions." Her birthday was still 6 weeks away, and David had never been the type to plan that far ahead. But she wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in April. Emma had fallen asleep on the couch during a movie, and Sarah was carrying her to bed when her daughter mumbled sleepily, "Mommy, why doesn't Jessica like it when I visit Daddy's office anymore?" Sarah stopped in the hallway. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Emma's eyes fluttered open. "Last week, when Daddy picked me up, Jessica looked sad when she saw me. She whispered something to Daddy, and then went to her office and closed the door. Did I do something wrong?" "No, baby, you didn't do anything wrong." But as Sarah tucked Emma into bed, she realized something had changed. If Jessica was just a professional colleague, why would Emma's presence affect her? Why would she need privacy when a 10-year-old was around that night? Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She was going to find out who Jessica Chen really was. Sarah's hands shook as she typed Jessica Chen TechFlow into her laptop's search bar at 2 a.m. while David slept beside her. The LinkedIn profile that appeared made her stomach drop. Jessica wasn't fresh out of college, as David had claimed. She was 26, had 3 years of marketing experience at major tech firms, and according to her profile, had been at TechFlow for 8 months. Not a few weeks. 8 months. That meant Jessica had been hired right around the time David started working late regularly, right around the time he began taking mysterious phone calls and keeping his device face down. Sarah scrolled through Jessica's photos, her heart sinking with each image. Jessica was beautiful in an effortless way that Sarah remembered being at 26, before marriage and motherhood and the comfortable settling that comes with building a life with someone. She had the kind of glossy black hair that moved like liquid and a smile that seemed to light up every photo. More damning were the location tags on Jessica's recent posts, the same restaurants that had appeared on their credit card statements, the same hotel bar where David claimed to meet clients. Photos dated within days of those mysterious charges, always captioned with phrases like "celebrating success" or "grateful for new opportunities." Sarah screenshot everything, her investigative teacher instincts kicking in. She had always been good at research, at piecing together evidence. It was why she had been such an effective educator, able to identify which students needed extra help before they fell behind. The next morning, Sarah called her best friend Maria, who was getting ready for her shift at the office building. "I need a favor," Sarah said. "Can you keep an eye out for anything unusual at TechFlow? I think David might be having an affair." Maria was quiet for a moment. "Honey, I've been wondering when you'd figure it out. I didn't want to be the one to tell you. But I've seen things. What kind of things? That Jessica girl, she's not just working late with your husband. Last month, I saw them in the parking garage at midnight, and they weren't discussing marketing strategies. I'm sorry, Sarah. I should have said something sooner. Sarah felt like she had been punched in the chest. Hearing her suspicions confirmed made everything real in a way that felt devastating. What exactly did you see? They were in his car. She was crying, and he was holding her hand, stroking her hair. It looked intimate, not professional. Then, last week, I was cleaning the executive floor and heard them in his office. The door was closed, but the conversation didn't sound like work. Sarah thanked Maria and hung up, then sat in her car in the grocery store parking lot, trying to process the information. Part of her wanted to drive to David's office immediately and confront them both, but her teacher instincts told her to gather more evidence first. If David was having an affair, there would be other signs, and if he was willing to lie about Jessica's background and their relationship. What else was he hiding that afternoon, while Emma was at dance class? Sarah drove to TechFlow's office building. She had never used her key access badge for anything other than company events, but today she swiped in and took the elevator to the executive floor. David was in meetings all afternoon, according to his calendar that she could access through their shared Google account. His office was empty, door unlocked as always. Sarah had been in this office hundreds of times over the years, bringing him lunch or stopping by with Emma. She knew every inch of it. What she didn't know was about the locked desk drawer that she discovered when looking for a pen. David had never locked anything from her before. Their entire marriage had been built on openness and trust, but when she pulled on the bottom drawer of his desk, it didn't budge. Using a paperclip, Sarah managed to work the lock open, a skill she had learned during her mischievous teenage years. Inside were documents that made no sense to her. Legal papers for something called Future Innovations LLC, bank statements for accounts she had never seen, and at the bottom, a small velvet box. Sarah opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a diamond tennis bracelet, far more expensive than anything David had ever bought her. The receipt was still inside $8,000, purchased the same day as that mysterious jewelry store charge on their credit card statement. The bracelet wasn't for her upcoming birthday. The size was wrong, too small for Sarah's wrist, but perfect for someone with delicate bone structure, someone like Jessica Chen. But the financial documents were what truly terrified her. Future Innovations LLC appeared to be a legitimate business entity, but Sarah didn't recognize any of the projects or investments listed. More concerning were the funding sources transfers from their joint savings account, their business account, and something listed as Emma College Fund, liquidated March 2024. Emma's College Fund, the account they had been contributing to since their daughter's birth. David had liquidated it without telling her and invested the money in some venture connected to Future Innovations. Sarah photographed everything with her phone, her hands shaking so badly she had to retake several shots. Then she carefully returned everything to the drawer and locked it, making sure to leave no trace of her presence. As she drove home, Sarah's mind raced. This wasn't just an affair. David was moving their money, making investments without her knowledge, and using their daughter's education fund as venture capital for projects she had never heard of. That evening, David came home cheerful and affectionate, asking about her day and helping Emma with homework, as if nothing had changed. But Sarah watched him with new eyes, noticing how he deflected questions about work, how he kept his phone close even during family dinner, how he seemed almost too attentive, as if overcompensating for something. After Emma went to bed, Sarah made a decision that felt like stepping off a cliff David, I need to ask you something directly, and I need you to be completely honest with me. He looked up from his laptop, eyebrows raised. Of course. What's on your mind? Are you having an affair with Jessica Chen? David's reaction was perfect. His face went through a sequence of emotions that would have been believable if Sarah hadn't already seen the evidence: confusion, hurt, then anger. Sarah, how can you ask me that? His voice carried just the right amount of wounded indignation. Jessica is a colleague, a professional colleague who happens to be helping me prepare for the biggest presentation of our company's history. Then why did you lie about how long she's worked there? You said she was new, fresh out of college. She's been at TechFlow for 8 months. David ran his hand through his hair, a gesture Sarah had once found endearing, but now seemed calculated. I didn't lie. 8 months is new in business terms, and I simplified her background because I didn't think you needed her entire resume. Our credit card has charges for restaurants I've never been to. Always on nights you say you're working late with the marketing team. Sarah, listen to yourself. You're acting exactly like your mother did with your father. This paranoid jealousy destroyed their marriage, and now you're trying to destroy ours. The comparison to her mother was a low blow, and David knew it. Sarah's father had left when the constant accusations became unbearable, claiming he couldn't live with someone who didn't trust him. Sarah had been 12, old enough to understand that her mother's paranoia had driven away the one parent who had truly loved her. I found the bracelet in your desk, Sarah said quietly. David's pause lasted exactly 2 heartbeats too long. What bracelet? The $8,000 tennis bracelet in your locked drawer. The one that doesn't fit my wrist? You went through my desk? David's anger seemed to shift from hurt to outrage. You broke into my locked drawer at my workplace, Sarah. This is crazy behavior. You're becoming obsessive. It's for her, isn't it? For Jessica. David stood up, pacing to the window. When he turned back, his expression had changed to something Sarah had never seen before: cold disappointment. The bracelet was going to be a surprise for our 15th anniversary next year. I bought it early because I got a good deal, and I locked it away so you wouldn't accidentally find it. But now you've ruined the surprise with your paranoid snooping. Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her. Their anniversary was in March. It was currently April. The timing could work, and the receipt had been dated weeks ago, which could align with David finding a good deal. The size is wrong, she said weakly. I kept the receipt so I could exchange it for the right size closer to our anniversary. Sarah, do you hear yourself? You're creating an entire conspiracy theory because you found a gift I bought for you. The explanation was plausible. Sarah felt foolish, exactly the way David intended, but she pressed on. What about future innovations? What about Emma's college fund? David's face went very still. How do you know about future innovations? The documents were in the same drawer. David, you liquidated our daughter's college fund without telling me. We're married. We're supposed to make financial decisions together. Future Innovations is an investment opportunity that could triple Emma's college fund by the time she graduates high school. I moved the money temporarily to take advantage of a time-sensitive deal. I was going to tell you once everything was finalized. What kind of investment? AI development for healthcare applications? It's technical, but the potential returns are enormous. Sarah, I'm trying to secure our family's future, and you're treating me like a criminal. Sarah wanted to believe him. Every explanation sounded reasonable when delivered with David's confident authority. But something still felt wrong. Then why all the secrecy? Why lock the drawer? Why not tell me about any of this? David sat back down, his expression softening. Because I wanted to surprise you. The bracelet. the investment success, all of it. I've been working so hard on the IPO and trying to set up these side investments to make sure we never have to worry about money again. I thought if I could present you with a complete picture of our improved financial situation, it would be romantic, a grand gesture. He reached over and took her hand. But I can see how my secrecy has been misinterpreted. I should have included you from the beginning. That's my fault. Sarah felt tears welling up. I'm sorry I doubted you. I found that hotel receipt from our anniversary, and then the credit card charges, and my imagination ran wild. The hotel receipt, David said, nodding. I was so angry at myself for missing our anniversary dinner that I booked that room to work on something special for you, a presentation about our life together, with photos and memories that I was going to give you on a makeup anniversary weekend. You were working on a presentation about us, about our journey together. From that first day, we started TechFlow in our kitchen to where we are now. I had this idea to surprise you with a renewal of our vows ceremony, something small and romantic to celebrate how far we've come. Sarah was crying now, guilt overwhelming her. David pulled her into his arms, stroking her hair the way he used to when they were young and everything felt possible. I love you, Sarah. Only you. You and Emma are my world. I would never do anything to jeopardize our family. I'm so sorry, she whispered against his chest. I was being paranoid, just like my mother. It's okay, David said softly. But we need to work on this trust issue. Maybe we should consider couples counseling. I don't want you to feel insecure in our marriage. Sarah nodded, feeling ashamed of her suspicions. David was right. She had been acting like her mother, seeing conspiracies where none existed. Her childhood trauma was bleeding into her marriage, and she needed to address it before it destroyed the best thing in her life. But as David held her, Sarah didn't see the satisfied smile that crossed his face. She didn't know that every word he had spoken was a carefully crafted lie, designed to make her doubt her own instincts and observations. She didn't know that the real plan was much worse than a simple affair. The next 3 weeks were the happiest Sarah had felt in months. David seemed to sense her need for reassurance and went out of his way to be attentive. He came home earlier, helped more with Emma's bedtime routine, and even surprised Sarah with a weekend getaway to their favorite bed and breakfast in the hill country. During their romantic weekend, David was the man Sarah had fallen in love with years ago. He talked about their future, their dreams for Emma, and his excitement about the upcoming IPO. He even showed her preliminary financial projections that suggested they could retire early if everything went according to plan. I've scheduled us for couples counseling, David said over breakfast on their last morning at the inn. I want to make sure we work through any trust issues so they don't resurface. Sarah felt a rush of love for this man who was taking her concerns seriously instead of dismissing them. Thank you for understanding why I was worried. I know I was being irrational. You weren't being irrational, David said, taking her hand. You were responding to my secretive behavior. I should have been more transparent from the beginning. They started couples therapy with Dr. Rebecca Martinez the following week. David was the perfect patient, open, honest, willing to take responsibility for his part in their communication breakdown. He admitted to being secretive about his work projects and promised to be more inclusive in financial decisions. Dr. Martinez seemed impressed with David's emotional intelligence and willingness to change. During their third session, she even commented on how rare it was to see a husband so committed to making his wife feel secure. Sarah began to feel like she had overreacted to everything. The couples therapy was helping her understand that her childhood abandonment issues had made her hypersensitive to perceived threats in her marriage. She was learning to communicate her needs without accusations and to trust David's explanations, unless she had concrete evidence to the contrary. Meanwhile, David continued to work late, but now he texted regular updates, still in the conference room with the marketing team, grabbing dinner with investors, home by 9. Jessica is helping me rehearse the Gala presentation one more time. The mention of Jessica no longer triggered panic in Sarah. In fact, during one of their therapy sessions, David had suggested that Sarah meet Jessica officially to put her concerns to rest. "I think you'd really like her," David said. "She's smart, professional, and she actually reminds me of you when we first started TechFlow. That same hunger to build something meaningful." Sarah agreed to meet Jessica, and they arranged to have lunch the following week. But the day before their scheduled meeting, Jessica called to reschedule due to a family emergency. Then she rescheduled again the following week due to work deadlines. After the third cancellation, Sarah began to feel like Jessica was avoiding her, but David assured her that Jessica was just overwhelmed with Gala preparations. "She's putting in 18-hour days to make sure everything is perfect," David explained. "She's probably embarrassed about not having time for personal meetings when she's supposed to be impressing the boss's wife." It made sense. Sarah decided to wait until after the charity gala to pursue the friendship. In the meantime, she focused on her own projects and started volunteering at Emma's school more regularly. The breakthrough in her healing came during their 4th therapy session when Dr. Martinez helped Sarah identify specific triggers from her childhood that were affecting her marriage. "Your father left when you were 12 after your mother's accusations became constant," Dr. Martinez noted. "You've internalized both your mother's fear of abandonment and your father's aversion to being questioned. This creates a painful internal conflict where you simultaneously fear betrayal and fear being seen as paranoid." Sarah felt understood in a way she hadn't experienced before. David was supportive throughout the session, holding her hand when she cried and promising to help her work through these old wounds. After that session, Sarah felt like they had turned a corner. She trusted David completely again and felt ashamed of her earlier suspicions. She even apologized to Maria for asking her to spy on David at the office. "You were just protecting your marriage," Maria said, "but I'm glad everything worked out." 2 nights before the charity gala, David came home with exciting news. Future innovations paid off, he announced, spinning Sarah around the kitchen. "The AI healthcare deal I invested Emma's college fund in just got acquired by a major pharmaceutical company. We made 4 times our initial investment." Sarah was thrilled. Not only had David's secretive investment strategy worked, but Emma's college fund was now larger than they had ever dreamed. "I'm so sorry I doubted you," Sarah said, kissing him. "You really were just trying to secure our family's future." "I don't blame you for being worried," David replied, "but I hope this proves that you can trust me, even when you don't understand what I'm doing." That night, Sarah fell asleep, feeling completely secure in her marriage for the first time in months. David was handling their finances brilliantly. Their therapy was bringing them closer together, and the charity gala would be a celebration of everything they had built together. She had no idea that David had never invested in any AI healthcare company. The Future Innovations documents were fabricated, designed to explain away his money transfers long enough for his real plan to unfold. The couple's therapy sessions were being recorded by David for a custody battle he was planning. And Jessica Chen wasn't avoiding Sarah out of work stress. She was avoiding Sarah because she was 6 months pregnant with David's child. And their lunch meeting kept getting postponed because Jessica was having severe morning sickness that lasted all day. The charity gala wasn't just David's coming out party with his new partner. It was going to be the public announcement of their engagement and pregnancy. time to coincide with divorce papers that would paint Sarah as mentally unstable and unfit to have custody of Emma. But Sarah slept peacefully, completely unaware that her world was about to explode. The morning of the charity gala. Sarah woke up feeling genuinely excited for the first time in months. She had bought a new dress for the occasion, a sophisticated navy blue gown that made her feel elegant and confident. Tonight would be a celebration of David's success as event chair and their renewed connection as a couple. David was already up, pacing the bedroom while talking on his phone about last-minute gala details. He seemed nervous, which Sarah attributed to the pressure of chairing such an important event. "Everything's going to be perfect," she said, kissing his cheek as he hung up. "You've worked so hard on this." "Yeah," David said, not meeting her eyes. "It's going to be a night no one forgets." Sarah spent the morning at the salon with Emma, getting their hair done together for the evening. Emma was excited about her first formal charity event, and Sarah had bought her a beautiful junior bridesmaid-style dress in pale pink. "Do you think Daddy will like my dress?" Emma asked as the stylist curled her hair. "He's going to think you're the most beautiful girl in the room," Sarah assured her. But when they returned home at 3 p.m., David was waiting with unexpected news. "There's been a change of plans," he said, looking genuinely apologetic. "The Children's Hospital Board decided this should be an adults-only event. Something about insurance liability with formal dining and dancing. Emma can't come tonight." Sarah's heart sank. Emma had been looking forward to the gala for weeks, and her dress was hanging upstairs ready to go. "But she's been planning for this," Sarah protested. "She even practiced walking in low heels." "I know, and I'm disappointed too, but board decisions are final. I'll make it up to her, I promise." Emma took the news better than Sarah expected, though her disappointment was obvious. "It's okay, Mommy. Maybe I can have a sleepover with Grandma instead." Sarah called her mother-in-law, who was happy to have Emma for the night. As they packed Emma's overnight bag, Sarah felt guilty about leaving her daughter behind for something she had been so excited about. "We'll do something special tomorrow," Sarah promised. "Just the two of us." "Can we get ice cream for breakfast?" Emma asked hopefully. "Ice cream for breakfast, it is." By 5 p.m., Emma was settled at Grandma's house, and Sarah was putting the finishing touches on her makeup. David had already left to handle final preparations at the venue, promising to meet her there at 7. Sarah arrived at the Austin Convention Center at 7:15, fashionably late as David had taught her for these events. The ballroom was transformed into an elegant wonderland with twinkling lights, white roses, and silent auction displays featuring artwork and vacation packages. The first person Sarah recognized was Tom Bradley, her high school friend who had become a successful divorce attorney. She hadn't seen Tom in over a year, and she was surprised to spot him across the room. "Sarah Mitchell," Tom said, approaching with a warm smile. "You look fantastic. How have you been?" "Really well, actually. David's been working so hard on this event. I'm proud of him." Tom's expression shifted slightly. "That's great to hear. How are things with you two? Last time we talked, you seemed a little stressed about work-life balance." Sarah had forgotten that conversation from last year when she had confided in Tom about feeling like she and David were ships passing in the night. "Much better," she said confidently. "We've been doing couples therapy, and it's helped us reconnect." "Couples therapy?" Tom's eyebrows raised. "That's proactive. Everything okay?" "Just normal marriage stuff. Communication issues, trust building. Nothing serious." Tom nodded, but something in his expression seemed concerned. "Well, if you ever need anything, you know I'm always here. We go way back." Sarah thanked him and moved through the crowd. greeting other parents from Emma's school and business associates she recognized from company events. Everyone complimented David's organization of the gala and asked where he was. "Still handling last-minute details," Sarah explained. "You know David. He wants everything perfect." At 8 p.m., the program was scheduled to begin, but David was nowhere to be seen. Sarah checked her phone but had no messages from him. She was starting to feel anxious when she noticed a commotion near the entrance. David was finally arriving, but he wasn't alone. Walking beside him was a stunning young woman in a silver sequined gown that looked like it cost more than Sarah's monthly grocery budget. The woman was tall, graceful, and absolutely radiant. She had the kind of beauty that made other women pause their conversations to stare. Sarah's stomach dropped as recognition hit her. This had to be Jessica Chen. The professional colleague who was too busy to meet for lunch was apparently available for formal events. As Sarah watched from across the ballroom, David placed his hand on the small of Jessica's back, guiding her through the crowd. It was a possessive gesture, intimate in a way that made Sarah's therapy-induced confidence crumble. Jessica was glowing in a way that Sarah remembered from her own pregnancy with Emma, that unmistakable radiance that came from carrying new life. Sarah tried to dismiss the observation. Maybe Jessica just had good skincare. Maybe the lighting was flattering. But as David introduced Jessica to prominent community members, Sarah noticed how protective he seemed, how he kept his arm around her waist, how he beamed with pride when people complimented her. More concerning were the whispered conversations that followed in their wake. Sarah caught fragments as people passed by. "Never seen David's wife look so young." "Where's Sarah tonight? I thought she always came to these things." "That's definitely not his wife. I've met Sarah Mitchell." The realization hit Sarah like a physical blow. People thought Jessica was David's wife. He was introducing her as his partner to people who didn't know Sarah personally, allowing them to assume Jessica was Mrs. Mitchell. Sarah's hands began to shake as she watched David take the stage for his opening remarks as event chair. Jessica stood at a front table, gazing up at him with obvious adoration. "Welcome, everyone, to our annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala," David began, his voice carrying perfectly through the ballroom's sound system. "Tonight, we gather not just to raise money for an incredible cause, but to celebrate the partnerships that make events like this possible." He paused, his eyes finding Jessica in the crowd. True partnership isn't just about shared goals. It's about finding someone who inspires you to be better than you ever thought possible. Someone who brings out the best version of yourself. Sarah felt sick. Those were nearly identical to the words David had spoken at their wedding 15 years ago. "So, tonight," David continued, raising his champagne glass, "I want to toast not just to the children we're helping, but to new beginnings, to inspiration, and to the partners who make us believe in the future." The applause was thunderous, but Sarah noticed that several people were looking around the ballroom, searching for her face in the crowd. They knew something was wrong. As David stepped down from the stage and walked directly to Jessica's table, Sarah realized with crystal clarity that everything he had told her was a lie. The couple's therapy, the successful investment, the promises of transparency, all of it had been an elaborate manipulation designed to keep her quiet while he planned this public humiliation. But as Sarah stood frozen in the back of the ballroom, she had no idea that the real devastation was still coming. Sarah felt paralyzed as she watched David lean down to whisper something in Jessica's ear, causing the younger woman to laugh and place her hand over his. The intimacy between them was undeniable, and Sarah realized that everyone at their table was treating Jessica as if she belonged there, as if she were Mrs. Mitchell. Fighting through her shock, Sarah began moving through the crowd toward David's table. She needed to understand what was happening, needed to reclaim her place beside her husband before this misunderstanding went any further. But as she got closer, she overheard a conversation that stopped her in her tracks. "The baby is due in December," Jessica was saying to an older woman Sarah recognized as a major hospital board member. "We're so excited. David is going to be such a wonderful father." Sarah's world tilted. Baby, due in December. David was going to be a wonderful father again. "And when is the wedding?" the board member asked. "I assume you'll want to be married before the baby arrives." "Next month," Jessica replied, touching her still flat stomach. "We're keeping it small and intimate. David's divorce should be finalized by then." Divorce. Finalized by next month. Sarah felt like she was drowning in plain sight of hundreds of people. She stumbled backward, her mind reeling. David had been planning to divorce her while they were in couples therapy, while he was promising transparency and renewed trust, while he was holding her and telling her she was the only woman he'd ever love. Sarah's legs gave out, and she sank into an empty chair at the back of the ballroom. Her phone buzzed with a text message, and she looked down automatically. The message was from an unknown number, but the content made her blood freeze. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Attorney James Robertson. We need to discuss the custody evaluation scheduled for Monday morning. Please call my office immediately." Custody evaluation. Sarah had never heard of Attorney James Robertson. She had never agreed to any custody evaluation. With trembling fingers, she called the number. "Robertson Family Law." A woman answered. "This is Sarah Mitchell. I received a text about a custody evaluation. Mrs. Mitchell, yes. Your husband's attorney filed for emergency custody of your minor daughter Emma based on concerns about your mental stability. The court-ordered evaluation is Monday at 9 a.m. Didn't your attorney inform you?" "I don't have an attorney. I don't know what you're talking about." There was a pause. "Mrs. Mitchell, divorce papers were filed 3 weeks ago. According to our records, you were served on April 22nd. Sarah had never been served with any papers. April 22nd was the day after their romantic weekend getaway, when David had been so loving and attentive. "There's been a mistake," Sarah said. "I was never served with divorce papers." "Ma'am, I have the process server's affidavit right here. You were served at your home address at 10:15 a.m. on April 22nd. The papers were handed directly to you according to the sworn statement." Sarah remembered April 22nd clearly. She had been at Emma's school all morning, volunteering in the library. She hadn't been home until after lunch. Someone had forged her signature on the service receipt. "What exactly is my husband claiming in these papers?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. "The petition cites irreconcilable differences and requests sole custody based on documented evidence of paranoid behavior, marriage counseling records indicating trust issues, and allegations of stalking workplace colleagues." Marriage counseling records. Dr. Martinez had been recording their sessions for David's custody case, not for their healing. Every vulnerable moment, every admission of insecurity or childhood trauma had been weaponized against her. "Mrs. Mitchell, are you there?" Sarah hung up and sat in the chair, staring at the scene before her. David was now on stage again, making additional remarks about the success of the evening. Jessica watched him with obvious pride, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. This wasn't just an affair. This was a complete replacement of Sarah's life with Jessica's. David had been planning this for months, maybe longer. The secretive phone calls, the late nights, the financial moves she had discovered, all of it had been preparation for discarding her and Emma while keeping the business, the money, and the social status they had built together. Sarah's phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Maria. "Sarah, honey, where are you? I just got off my shift at the office building, and I need to tell you something important." "I'm at the gala," Sarah said numbly. "David is here with Jessica. She's pregnant." "Oh, sweetie. I was hoping I was wrong about what I overheard tonight." "Sarah, you need to get out of there right now." "What did you overhear?" "I was cleaning the executive floor after hours when Jessica and David came back to his office. They didn't know I was there. Sarah, they were talking about how the custody evaluation on Monday is just a formality. David has been recording you without your knowledge. He has audio of you having what he's calling mental episodes during your therapy sessions." Sarah felt ice in her veins. "What kind of mental episodes?" "Times when you cried or got emotional. He's taken them out of context to make you sound unstable. And Sarah, there's more. Jessica isn't just his girlfriend. She's been promoted to chief marketing officer, and they've restructured the company so that you're not listed as a founder anymore. Legally, you're just an employee who can be terminated." The full scope of David's betrayal hit Sarah like an avalanche. He had stolen her marriage, her role in the company she had helped build, her rights as a mother, and even her identity as a founding partner of their business. "Sarah, are you listening? You need to leave that gala right now and call a lawyer. Tonight." Sarah looked across the ballroom at her husband, who was accepting congratulations and praise for the successful event while his pregnant girlfriend basked in the attention of being mistaken for his wife. "It's too late," Sarah whispered. "He's already won." But as Sarah sat in that chair feeling completely defeated, she didn't know that Maria had been recording David and Jessica's conversation in his office. She didn't know that Tom Bradley, the divorce attorney, had already noticed inconsistencies in David's behavior tonight and was prepared to help an old friend. And she didn't know that David's arrogance was about to become his greatest weakness. Sarah sat motionless in the ballroom for 20 minutes, watching David work the crowd with Jessica at his side. People were congratulating them as if they were already married, and Jessica was accepting the praise graciously, playing the role of the devoted wife-to-be. But Sarah's paralysis broke when she saw David approach the microphone again. This time, he wasn't making remarks about the charity. His expression was different, more personal, more intimate. "Before we conclude tonight's formal program," David announced, "I have a personal announcement to share with all of you who have become like family to Jessica and me over these past months." Sarah's stomach clenched. He was going to make it official, in front of 300 people. David was about to announce his engagement to Jessica while Sarah sat in the back of the room like a discarded piece of furniture. But before David could continue, Sarah felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Tom Bradley, the divorce attorney, with a concerned expression. "Sarah, we need to talk. Right now." "Tom, I can't. He's about to make the biggest mistake of his life, and you're going to stop him. Come with me." Tom guided Sarah out of the ballroom and into a quiet corridor. "I've been watching tonight, and something doesn't add up. I know David, and this isn't like him to be so public about personal matters. What's really going on?" Sarah broke down and told Tom everything: the affair, the pregnancy, the divorce papers she'd never seen, the custody evaluation she'd never agreed to, the therapy sessions that had apparently been recorded without her knowledge. Tom's expression grew darker with each revelation. "Sarah, what David is doing is illegal on multiple levels. You can't be served divorce papers through fraud. Therapy sessions can't be recorded without your consent and your therapist's consent. And if he's restructured the business to remove your founding partner status without your knowledge, that's corporate fraud." But he's already won, Sarah said. Everyone thinks Jessica is his wife. She's pregnant. The custody evaluation is Monday. The custody evaluation can be postponed if we file an emergency motion claiming fraud in the original petition. And Sarah, I need to ask you something important. Do you have any evidence of David's deception? Anything at all? Sarah thought about the photos on her phone from David's desk drawer, the hotel receipt, the credit card statements. I have some things, but Tom, I can't afford a legal battle with David. He controls all our money. You helped build TechFlow from nothing. If you're truly a founding partner, you own 50% of a $50 million company. David can't just erase that with paperwork tricks. Tom checked his watch. We need to act fast. That announcement he's about to make could complicate everything. They could hear applause from the ballroom, which meant David was still speaking. Sarah realized this might be her only chance to stop him from completely rewriting their history. What do I need to do? She asked. First, we're going to walk back in there together. I'm your attorney now, and David is going to learn that tonight. Second, you're going to reclaim your place in that room. You're Mrs. Mitchell, not Jessica Chen. Third, we're going to make sure everyone knows the truth about what's been happening. Tom handed Sarah his business card. Put this in your purse. When people ask who your attorney is, you give them my name. David's been planning this ambush for months. It's time for him to face some consequences. As they walked back toward the ballroom, Sarah's phone buzzed with a call from Maria. Sarah, thank God. I just emailed you something you need to see right now. Check your phone. Sarah opened her email app and found a message from Maria with an audio file attached. The subject line read, David and Jessica planning your destruction, recorded tonight. Sarah played the file through her phone speaker, and Tom leaned in to listen. David's voice came through clearly. The custody evaluation Monday is just theater. I've got recordings of Sarah having breakdowns in therapy, and Dr. Martinez is being paid to testify about her paranoid episodes. The judge will give me sole custody based on mental instability. Jessica's voice responded, What if she fights the divorce? She can't. I've restructured everything, so she's not legally a founding partner anymore. She's just an employee who can be terminated. The prenup she signed covers her salary. Nothing more. Tom's eyes widened. Sarah, did you sign a prenup? No, we never had a prenup. We started the company with nothing. The recording continued with David's voice. By Christmas, when the baby's born, Sarah will be out of the picture completely. Emma will have adjusted to living with us full time, and Sarah will be lucky to get supervised visitation. Tom stopped the recording. Sarah, this changes everything. David just confessed to fraud, perjury, and conspiracy. We're not just fighting a divorce anymore. We're exposing criminal behavior. They could hear David's voice amplified through the ballroom sound system. So it gives me tremendous joy to announce that Jessica and I are engaged to be married, and we're expecting our first child together in December. The applause that followed sounded forced, uncomfortable. Sarah realized that many people in the audience knew her and were confused by this announcement. It's time, Tom said. Are you ready to take your life back? Sarah looked at her reflection in the corridor mirror. Her navy dress was elegant, her hair was perfect, and for the first time in months, her eyes looked clear and determined. I'm ready, she said. As they walked back into the ballroom, Sarah realized that David's public announcement had just given her the perfect opportunity to expose everything in front of the same audience he had chosen to humiliate her. Sarah and Tom entered the ballroom just as David was accepting congratulations from various attendees. Jessica stood beside him, glowing with triumph, accepting well wishes about their engagement and pregnancy. The scene looked perfect from a distance, but Sarah could see the discomfort on many faces in the crowd. People who knew her were clearly confused. Tom guided Sarah to the front of the room, where David was still shaking hands and receiving congratulations. As they approached, David's smile faltered slightly when he spotted Tom Bradley. "Tom," David said, extending his hand with practiced charm. "Good to see you here tonight, supporting a great cause." "Actually, David, I'm here on business now," Tom replied, not shaking the offered hand. "I'm representing Sarah." David's expression shifted, but he maintained his composure. "Representing her for what Sarah and I are handling our divorce amicably through mediation." "There's been no mediation, David. There's been fraud." Tom's voice carried clearly, and nearby conversations began to quiet as people sensed tension. Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Hello, David. Congratulations on your engagement. I'm sure everyone here is surprised to learn about it, since we're still married." A hush fell over their immediate area. Jessica's face went pale, and she looked between Sarah and David with growing panic. "Sarah," David said, his voice tight with warning, "this isn't the time or place for a scene. You made this the time and place when you announced your engagement to your pregnant girlfriend in front of 300 people who thought I was your wife." Sarah replied. Her therapy sessions had taught her to speak calmly, even when she felt overwhelmed, and that skill served her well now. More people were gathering around them, sensing drama. Sarah recognized several board members from TechFlow, community leaders, and parents from Emma's school. David's face was red with embarrassment and anger. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Jessica said, her voice shaking. "David told me his divorce was finalized months ago." "There is no divorce," Sarah said gently, almost feeling sorry for the younger woman. "David has been lying to both of us." Tom stepped forward with his briefcase. "David, I have here an emergency motion to dismiss the fraudulent divorce petition you filed. The court will be very interested to learn that you forged service documents and recorded therapy sessions without consent. You can't prove any of that," David said, but his confidence was cracking. Sarah pulled out her phone and played Maria's recording for everyone to hear. David's voice filled the space around them. "The custody evaluation. Monday is just theater. I've got recordings of Sarah having breakdowns in therapy." The crowd that had gathered gasped audibly. Several people pulled out their phones to record what was happening. David's face went from red to ashen as he realized his own words were being broadcast. "Where did you get that?" he demanded. "From someone who actually cares about the truth," Sarah replied. "David, you've been planning to steal my daughter, my company, and my life for months while pretending to work on our marriage." "This is insane," David said, looking around at the crowd. "Sarah has been having mental health issues. She's been paranoid and unstable." "The only thing I've been is naive," Sarah shot back. "Naive enough to believe that my husband was working late instead of planning my destruction. Naive enough to think that our marriage counselor was helping us heal instead of gathering evidence for your custody case." Tom opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "David, these are financial records showing how you've been systematically moving marital assets and attempting to restructure TechFlow to exclude Sarah from her founding partner rights. That's not mental instability. That's corporate fraud." The crowd was now openly recording the confrontation. Sarah could see the shocked faces of people who had known them as a couple for years. David's carefully constructed public image was crumbling in real time. "Furthermore," Tom continued, "the prenup you claim Sarah signed doesn't exist. We've searched court records going back 15 years. You've been planning to steal half of everything she helped build. Jessica suddenly spoke up, her voice barely a whisper. David, you told me she knew about us. You said she was okay with the divorce. A tech billionaire just announced his engagement to his pregnant mistress at a charity gala in front of 300 people. There's just one problem: his wife had no idea they were getting divorced. But when Sarah Mitchell walked through those ballroom doors with her attorney, she wasn't just there to stop a wedding announcement. She was there to expose a fraud so elaborate it involved stolen companies, forged documents, and a plan to steal her own daughter. This story has everything: secret recordings, fake pregnancies, and a revenge so perfectly executed it'll give you chills. If you love seeing justice served ice cold, smash that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe, because what happens next will blow your mind. Trust me, this man's downfall is absolutely spectacular. Jessica, don't say anything else, David warned, but it was too late. You said the baby was planned, that we were starting fresh together. But if she didn't know... Jessica's voice trailed off as understanding dawned on her face. Sarah almost felt sorry for Jessica in that moment. The younger woman was clearly realizing that she had been manipulated just as thoroughly as Sarah had been. Tom pulled out one more document. David, this is a motion for emergency audit of TechFlow's finances and a temporary restraining order freezing all marital assets until this fraud can be investigated properly. You can't do that, David sputtered. I have business obligations, payroll to meet. You should have thought about that before you decided to commit multiple felonies, Tom replied calmly. The crowd was now substantial, with people openly filming and whispering. Sarah could see that word was spreading throughout the ballroom. David's triumph was becoming his public humiliation. Sarah, David tried one last manipulation. Think about Emma. Do you really want to put her through an ugly public divorce? We can still work this out privately. Emma deserves a mother who fights for what's right, Sarah replied. And she deserves to know that actions have consequences, even for people in positions of power. As if summoned by her words, Sarah's phone rang. The caller ID showed Emma's school emergency line. Mrs. Mitchell? It was the school principal. We need to speak with you immediately. Someone claiming to be your attorney tried to withdraw Emma from school tonight, saying there was a family emergency. We refused since it wasn't during normal hours, but I thought you should know. Sarah's blood ran cold. Even while making his public announcement, David had been trying to take Emma away from her. She looked at David with disgust and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. You tried to kidnap our daughter tonight while you were announcing your engagement to another woman. The crowd's reaction was immediate and visceral. These were parents, grandparents, and community members who understood that David had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. David's last shreds of dignity evaporated as he realized his complete defeat. The fallout from the charity gala was swift and comprehensive. By Sunday morning, videos of David's public humiliation were trending on local social media, with hashtags like Achater Charity Gala Exposed and Achater TechFlow Scandal. The Austin business community was buzzing with shock and condemnation. Sarah spent Saturday morning at Tom Bradley's law office, filing additional motions and providing evidence of David's elaborate deception. The audio recording from Maria proved to be devastating, and when combined with the financial documents Sarah had photographed, it painted a clear picture of systematic fraud. The district attorney's office has already called, Tom reported. They're opening a criminal investigation into the forged service documents, the illegal recordings, and the attempted kidnapping. David's going to have much bigger problems than divorce court. Dr. Martinez, their marriage counselor, was equally horrified when she learned how her sessions had been manipulated. She provided an affidavit confirming that she had never consented to recordings and that David had misrepresented Sarah's emotional responses during therapy. The custody evaluation was immediately dismissed. But the most satisfying development came Monday morning when Heiress and Blackwood, TechFlow's largest investor, called an emergency board meeting. David was suspended as CEO pending investigation, and the board voted unanimously to install Sarah as interim chief executive. "The company was built on both your contributions," Blackwood explained to Sarah during a private meeting. "David's attempt to erase your founding partner status is not only illegal, but morally reprehensible. We need leadership with integrity." Jessica Chen had disappeared entirely. According to Maria, she had cleaned out her office over the weekend and left no forwarding address. Later investigation would reveal that Jessica wasn't pregnant at all. The engagement announcement had been part of David's psychological warfare against Sarah, designed to make her feel completely replaced. 3 months later, Sarah stood in the same ballroom where David had tried to humiliate her, but this time she was being honored as Austin's Business Leader of the Year. TechFlow's IPO had been more successful than anyone predicted, largely because investors were impressed with Sarah's leadership during the company's crisis. Emma sat in the front row, beaming with pride at her mother. Their relationship had grown stronger through the ordeal, and Emma often told her friends that her mom was the strongest person in the world. During her acceptance speech, Sarah reflected on the lessons she had learned. Sometimes the people we trust most are capable of the deepest betrayal, but that doesn't mean we should stop trusting. It means we should trust ourselves first, our instincts, our worth, and our ability to survive anything. She looked out at the audience, spotting familiar faces from that night 6 months ago. Many of the same people who had witnessed David's deception were now applauding her success. "The greatest gift my ex-husband gave me was showing me what I was capable of when I stopped accepting less than I deserved. For that, I'm almost grateful." David was sentenced to 2 years in prison for fraud and attempted kidnapping. He lost all rights to TechFlow, and his parental rights were terminated after he failed to appear for court-ordered visitation with Emma. The last Sarah heard, he was working at a tech startup in another state, trying to rebuild his reputation. Sarah never remarried, choosing instead to focus on building her company and raising Emma. But she often spoke at conferences about financial abuse and the importance of women knowing their worth in both business and personal relationships. Years later, when Emma asked about forgiveness and whether Sarah ever missed being married, Sarah would think carefully before answering. "I miss the idea of the partnership I thought we had," she would say, "but I never missed being treated as less than I was worth." The most important relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. Emma, make sure it's a good one. On quiet evenings, Sarah would sit in her home office, the same kitchen where TechFlow had been born, and remember the woman she used to be, the woman who doubted her instincts and apologized for having needs. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and unafraid of standing alone. The charity gala where David had tried to erase her had instead become the night Sarah discovered who she really was when everything false was stripped away. In trying to destroy her, David had accidentally set her free. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply becoming the person your betrayer never believed you could be.